Religion versus Spirituality. From Belief to Direct Knowing. Introduction. In the search for truth, two major paths have shaped human understanding for millennia: religion and spirituality. While both claim to guide the seeker toward a higher reality, they diverge radically in approach and outcome. Religion generally rests on systems of belief, ritual, and authority, offering salvation as a goal to be reached through devotion to an external God. Spirituality, by contrast, looks inward. It begins not with faith in something external, but with an inquiry into one's own nature. It leads not to belief, but to direct knowing. In this writing, we explore the differences between these two paths, not from a place of comparison or judgment, but from clarity, drawing on the wisdom of Sri Ramana Maharshi and Sri Nisargadatta Maharaj. We will examine how spirituality moves beyond the dualistic model of God and self, and into the non-dual realization that what you are seeking is what you already are. Ramana taught silent self-inquiry, inviting the seeker to question the very foundation of identity. Nisargadatta stripped away all conceptual layers, urging us to abide in the raw sense of I am, until even that dissolves. Together, their teachings show that true realization is not something to be achieved. It is what remains when all illusions fall away. Fear versus love. Religion often begins with fear. Fear of punishment, of sin, of separation from God. Many religious systems introduce the divine as a judge, rewarding obedience and condemning disobedience. Fear becomes the tool for control, and salvation the distant reward. Spirituality, however, arises from love, the love of truth, the longing to return to what is real and whole. It does not begin with the assumption that you are fallen or lost. Instead, it quietly whispers, "You are already that which you seek." Sri Nisargadatta Maharaj described it clearly. Love says, "I am everything." Wisdom says, "I am nothing." Between the two, my life flows. In spirituality, fear dissolves in the presence of self-recognition. When the idea of separation vanishes, what remains is pure love, not as emotion, but as the substratum of being. Ramana Maharshi echoed this truth in silence. His very presence radiated peace, and his teachings pointed inward, away from fear, toward the quiet certainty of the self. In this way, religion begins with fear of separation. Spirituality ends in the love of unity. 2. Duality versus non-duality. Religion often frames the universe in terms of duality: God and man, good and evil, heaven and hell. In this framework, the individual is seen as separate from the divine, and the spiritual journey becomes a long path toward reunion. This separation creates the idea of a distant goal and an external power that must be pleased or obeyed to attain salvation. Spirituality, in contrast, begins by questioning this separation. It introduces the idea of non-duality, that the division between the seeker and the divine is an illusion. What appears as two is, upon investigation, only one. Sri Ramana Maharshi taught that the self, the unchanging awareness behind all thoughts and experiences, is not different from the absolute reality. He said, "There are no two selves. The one self alone exists." In this vision, the divine is not a being to reach, but the ground of being itself. Spirituality doesn't seek union with God as something outside. It reveals that no separation ever existed. The journey is not outward but inward, and its destination is the direct realization: I am that. 3. Belief versus inquiry. Religion places emphasis on belief, accepting certain teachings, doctrines, or stories as truth. Faith becomes a requirement, often without direct experience. Belief can provide comfort, but it may also reinforce dependence on external authority. Spirituality does not begin with belief. It begins with inquiry. Rather than being told what is true, the spiritual seeker is encouraged to ask, "What is true for me? Who am I? Sri Nisargadatta Maharaj emphasized the importance of direct investigation. He advised seekers to hold on to the sense of I am, not as a thought, but as the bare sense of being, and to reject all that arises as not self. He said, "The only true statement is I am. All else is inference." Ramana Maharshi echoed this through the practice of self-inquiry, asking the seeker to turn attention inward with the question, "Who am I?" This question, when followed persistently, peels away all assumptions and reveals the reality that is always present. Spirituality invites the individual to see, not to believe, but to know through direct experience. In this path, freedom comes not from faith in words, but from clarity born of seeing what remains when all thoughts and beliefs fall away. 4. External authority versus inner guidance. Religion often relies on external structures, scriptures, clergy, doctrines, to guide the individual's spiritual path. Guidance is typically sought from outside sources, and spiritual maturity is measured by adherence to these systems. Spirituality turns this approach inward. It teaches that true guidance arises not from outer instruction, but from inner stillness. When the mind becomes quiet and inquiry deepens, clarity emerges from within. This inner guidance is not based on opinion or emotion, but on direct recognition of truth. Ramana Maharshi taught that the true guru is within. He said, "The guru is not outside you. Turn inward, and you will find him in your heart." Nisargadatta Maharaj also pointed seekers away from concepts and toward their own being. All you need is to stop searching outside and turn inward. Spirituality affirms that what you're looking for is not in another's words. It is already present within you, waiting to be seen. 5. Ritual versus presence. Religion often expresses devotion through rituals, formalized practices, prayers, and ceremonies. While these can offer structure and meaning, they can also become mechanical, repeated without understanding or direct experience. Spirituality emphasizes presence, the living awareness of the moment, free from past conditioning or future expectation. Presence is not something that must be created. It is what remains when attention is no longer fragmented. Nisargadatta instructed seekers to remain in the I am, not as a mantra or ritual, but as an immediate and living awareness. Stay with the I am. The I am is the doorway. Ramana Maharshi's silence itself was a teaching. His presence transmitted more than words ever could. For the spiritual seeker, the most sacred practice is simply to rest in the natural state of awareness, free from effort or form. 6. Salvation versus liberation. Religion often speaks of salvation, a future event granted by divine grace, dependent on behavior, belief, or divine intervention. It places freedom in the future as something to be earned. Spirituality speaks of liberation, not as a reward, but as the natural state of one who sees clearly. Liberation is not postponed to another life or after death. It is the discovery that there was never any bondage to begin with. Ramana Maharshi stated, "Liberation is our very nature. We are not going to acquire it afresh." Nisargadatta echoed this insight. "You are not in the world. The world is in you." Spiritual realization does not bring something new. It removes what is false. The self, being ever present, does not need to be saved. It only needs to be recognized. 7. Moral rules versus inner ethics. Religion commonly lays out moral rules, codes of conduct designed to shape behavior. These rules are often externally imposed, backed by reward or punishment, and can be followed without inner transformation. Spirituality, instead, gives rise to inner ethics, a natural unfolding of compassion, truthfulness, and clarity as the ego dissolves. When the false sense of self is dropped, what remains is harmony with all. Ramana Maharshi noted that as the ego fades, love and compassion arise without effort. When the I dies, love and compassion arise naturally. For the spiritual seeker, ethical living is not a duty but a byproduct of realization. When there is no separation, Kindness is not a choice. It is simply what flows from unity. 8. Prayer versus meditation. Prayer, as practiced in many religious traditions, involves speaking to a higher power, asking for help, forgiveness, or blessings. While sincere prayer can offer comfort, it often reinforces the idea of a separate self-petitioning and external God. Meditation, in spiritual traditions, is not about asking, it is about being. It turns awareness inward, quiets the mind, and reveals the presence that has always been. Ramana Maharshi said, "To remain without questions is the ultimate meditation." Nisargadatta Maharaj guided seekers to let go of effort. Stop imagining yourself being or doing this or that, and the realization that you are the source and heart of all will dawn upon you. In true meditation, nothing is sought. There is only resting as awareness itself. This stillness dissolves the boundaries between seeker and sought, revealing the non-dual truth at the heart of all experience. Finally, from separation to unity, religion and spirituality each attempt to address the fundamental questions of life, but their paths diverge. Religion often begins with the premise of separation and proposes a way to bridge it. Spirituality begins by questioning the very notion of separation and, through direct insight, reveals that no such gap ever existed. The teachings of Ramana Maharshi and Nisargadatta Maharaj and others point to this profound truth. The self is not apart from reality. It is reality. The divine is not something to reach. It is what you already are, here and now, before thought, before belief, before seeking. Where religion may call on you to believe, spirituality calls on you to look. Where religion seeks salvation, spirituality realizes liberation. Where religion teaches obedience, spirituality unveils presence. And ultimately, where religion worships a God beyond, spirituality discovers that the divine is no other. It is the very essence of your own being. If this content brought you clarity or stirred something deeper within, go ahead and click the like button to help others discover it too. And if you'd like more content like this rooted in self-inquiry, non-duality, and spiritual awakening, subscribe to the channel and join the journey inward. The self is always here, waiting to be recognized.